Okay, everybody, welcome to this evening's ACY Securities webinar. My name is Duncan Cooper. Tonight is live Forex market review. So before we get into it, if you can read through this disclaimer. If you're on our YouTube channel live stream, I can't see the chat, but you're more than welcome to join us. I've given you the link, or you can just watch in the live stream, but I can't see the chat, so I can't answer your questions. All right, let's move along. If you don't know me, my name is Duncan Cooper. I'm a senior market strategist and trading mentor here at ACY Securities, and I'm a full-time trader. Been trading now for more than 15 years in the Forex market and mentoring clients for more than 10. If you want to contact me, just use my email on screen there, duncan.cooper@acy.com. If you want anything to do with the webinars, just send me an email. As well, you can follow me through the week at our website, acy.com market news page, ACY Securities Australia YouTube channel, and you can connect with me on my Twitter and LinkedIn as well if you wish. As well, through the week, you could get access to our Telegram channel. I'm providing analysis in there too. Contact Nathan Bray at acy.com. I'll put his details in the chat in a moment. As well, if you want to get access to my chart layouts, indicators, you'll see my charts in a moment, but they look like this up here, then simply contact Nathan as well, and he'll get back to you. So I'll just put that in the chat. All right, that's in the chat. All right, let's have a quick look at what news is coming out today before we get into the charts. All right, so news coming up today. US news at 10:30 p.m. This is New South Wales time. We've got core retail sales, Empire State Manufacturing, retail sales, a few other minor items there. All right, and then for the rest of the week, tomorrow at 4 p.m., well, noon, this could affect the Aussie pairs. Noon, we've got China retail sales. 4 p.m. for the pound retail sales, and then midnight moving into Saturday, we've got the US prelim, UOM consumer sentiment. So those are the news items coming out. But more importantly, in the next few hours, 3.5 hours, we've got the core retail sales for the US coming out. So let's get into charts now. The market's still absorbing the core CPI news that came out on, just trying to remember what day it was, Tuesday. All right, so we had a big drop, and some of the pairs I'm still waiting for a little bit more of a clarification about what price wants to do. So I just want to click through my charts to see what's been going on since I've been getting ready. Some of these pairs are rather slow going at the moment. All right, I'm not seeing anything I would like to just click in on. So what we'll do is start with the dollar index. We'll give that a review, and we'll just move through the pairs and have a look at the levels, see what kind of patterns may be forming. Let's say some of the pairs are a little bit sideways, a bit flat. They're just absorbing that news from the other day. But are we getting a high time frame bias look to help us over the next few trading days? So let's have a look at the dollar index. Now, whilst the month's positive, and this is why I think maybe pairs to the US dollar may well want to be going up over the next month or so, is that the dollar index is way overextended here on the monthly chart. And from the major range here, squash your dollar index in, we're at the 79% level of that major range. Now, we could, yes, move through that level, but we already reacted at level once, and the market's asking the question, what does it want to do at this 79% retracement level at 110.25? We're toying with some resistance at 109.24. We've been below it, back above it. And we've been getting a bit of support this month at 108.09, this old resistance level. So yes, the trend is up, way overextended though. And weekly, we had a negative week last week, and then we've had a week down this week. We are positive based on that news that came out the other day. But we're having a week down to the day chart. There's that day up, Tuesday. But since then, the market's kind of put the brakes on, and it actually had a negative day yesterday. And you can see their dollar index at the moment is just challenging the highs that have been formed over the last couple of days. All right, if I don't break these down into a 4-hour look, we're going to start to see what I'm showing you here. Well, we obviously moved down. We've rallied, and we're in the 62.79% zone of that move down. And you're going to see the inverse look on the pairs to the US dollar. So the question is, was that a one-day move back up for then a further move down in line with last week's negative week, or are we going to start to move back up again? I guess ultimately we won't know till next week, because at the moment on the weekly chart, we're having a week down. We were negative, but now we're positive. Will we have a week up next week? If we don't have a week up next week and we kind of continue to slip down, we could be, having a further week down next week. So we won't know if that's a 1 week corrective move, or we're going to have more weeks down. We'll just have to wait and see. But it's a very short corrective move if it is, because you'd expect maybe a 62% retracement on the weekly chart, and we haven't had that yet. So we'll just have to wait and see. All right, so keep watching the structure of that to see how it pans out. Slav, you got saying dollar index is expected to keep moving up as long as Fed keeps increasing rates and continue to accelerate QT. Well, potentially, but you never know. The market may have already factored all that in. And we're, obviously well overextended on the monthly chart. We could go sideways, we could go slightly down. Doesn't mean to say that long term the dollar won't be up, but nothing, if you look at your pairs, look at instruments, nothing continually just have months and months up without having corrective moves, like a month down. That doesn't mean to say that any of the fundamental picture is really changing. It's just buyers and sellers changing their positions, taking profits, so on and so forth. So long term, for sure, potentially maybe the US dollar is going to continue up. But right here on the day chart, we've got MACD divergence. So I'm just thinking we're heading into maybe a bit of a corrective phase. And you're saying the 2008 scenario could just replay what it could do, but some of these pairs to the US dollar, like the pound dollar, trade down to a critical major level of support. So, that's well overextended to the downside, dollar index extended to the upside. So it's not beyond the realms of seeing a corrective phase. Doesn't mean to say the fundamental picture has changed in any event, but so the S&P 500, it's just pop it back to the daily here. It's having that big day down, but look at the structure on the day chart here. This is a higher top. Is this forming a higher bottom here? See all this support here, day support. Big close below, weekly support here on the drop, but the next day we close back above. So that just looks like the inverse of the dollar index. Is that getting ready to put in a higher bottom here from a higher top? All right. Such a negative day and then nothing the next day. That to me just looks like it's like a one day. We didn't follow through. We couldn't take a loss the next day. All right. So we'll just have to wait and see over the next few days how price starts to structure itself. Was that a 1 day corrective day, but it hasn't changed the trend back to down there on the daily? All right. So I just want to look at, first of all, the dollar yen. Not trading this pair at the moment. There are some headlines out at the moment that the Bank of Japan might come in and, do something to correct this. The price of the dollar yen's obviously been moving up for a considerable amount of time now. So there is news coming out that maybe they're going to be doing something to push price back down. So I'm just aware of that at the moment on the yen crosses. Now, I did the other day on my monthly chart come up with this 79% retracement level, which is kind of similar to what we're seeing on the dollar index in its general term. You squash the chart in, you have to squash it in quite a lot. I have to squash it down to there. This major high point here back in 1990, March 1990 approximately, or April 1990. And then drawing the fib down to that low there, we're kind of into the 79% region, fractionally above. So we're very high up within that, multi-decade ranged area that we're in. So whether or not this is going to be where, obviously the Bank of Japan's looking at price and going, this has got overextended now, we're not really happy with the price. Are they actually going to come in? Or is it enough just to talk about it, to start to see a little bit of a sell-off? So I'm just waiting to see some clarity there, but the monthly trend is clearly up there at the moment still. And the weekly trend here, we haven't managed maybe just to push to a fresh high or an equal high. Let me just double check the highs here. Actually, couldn't quite take out the top of last week. And you can see we're rather consolidatory here. We are sitting on some monthly supports. Once we've broken above some monthly tops here, we're managing just to sit on top here. So we are getting some support from moving above some monthly tops. All right, but you break it down to the 4-hour chart, you can see that it's rather consolidatory. It's right in the middle of, you can draw a range from where it's getting support here, drawing a line across the top. And pretty much 145 is the top, 144.99. And we're sitting in the middle of that range that it's starting to form at the moment. So it's a little bit undecided at where it is. But notably on the weekly chart, if you draw in the last fib tool swing, we're beyond the 127 extension. So we're in the profit zone of the move up at the moment. So yeah, Cam, you're saying double top on the 4-hour. Well, I don't know if it's a double top or a range, but we're definitely overextended in where price is placed at the moment. And that's why, this moving down for 2, 3, 4 weeks hasn't changed the trend. It's just corrective of price action. All right. And, if this does move down, the dollar index will move down in all probability too. It's not changing the trend. You just have to understand that price moves up and down. And we're getting, this doesn't make any sense to me to be a buyer up here because we're overextended. So I'm not seeing a reason to sell in terms of price action. But if you want to be a buyer on the dollar index, you should have been buying in the early phase of the next move up, not trying to get along at the upper reaches of the extensions here. Okay, so I'm just watching that at the moment to see what's going on, but just sitting in the middle of a range there at the moment. But notably, as I get into the other yen crosses, there's a bit of talk about the Bank of Japan coming in and doing something. So be aware of that. All right, let's get into the Aussie Yen now. The Aussie Yen at the moment, it's moved above this week, this significant monthly top and another monthly level. Go to your monthly chart. It's moved above this top here, moved above this historical top here, but can't really hold what we're seeing. There's your weekly. Negative for the week at the moment. We're not quite holding above that top there. All right, so we are having some selling pressure. He did manage to get support yesterday from this day top, 96.19. And if you're on top of this chart, that was a 62% pullback as well. So looking to get long yesterday at 62, where day support would have been the go. But you can see here that it doesn't seemingly like it's coming back up to test the monthly top at 96.87. We've been above it today and we're having a little bit of selling pressure at the moment. So are we topping out at monthly resistance here? All right. If you're on top of this, well, we're not too far below 96.87 at the moment. The question is, are we topping out here for a deeper corrective move? We've had a trend line break already. It's a little bit difficult to determine for me at the moment because I like to have a clear bias of trend, and the day chart to me is clearly up. So whilst we're contending with this high, this level of support that's holding is holding. If I was going to do something today, I want to see what happens maybe from the buy side of this pair. Does this level of support get retested? So the level of support, go to the 4-hour chart. Does this level of support here at 96.19 in line with that fib? Does that hold today on a move back down? All right, because what could be happening here is it might not get back down to support. This could be bouncing off support, then pulling back, wanting to put a higher bottom in on the 4-hour chart to move up and higher. So I'm a little bit on the fence on some of these pairs at the moment. When we've got support and resistance all lined up and prices just bouncing between one and the other, you have to start to work out where do you think the longer term trend is, and then where would you like to execute a trade at. So I think the trend is still generally up. It's just struggling at this resistance area at the moment. So I'd like to be a buyer, but well away from resistance. If it comes back down to 96.19, yesterday it got good support at 9600. So anywhere from 96.19 down to 9600 again, you could draw a fib from that upward move that we just saw on the 4-hour chart, and monitor, see the 79% level nicely overlaps with 96.19 here. That's at 96.22. So that would be an area that would catch my eye to look to trade at and around. All right, I'm not too fussed at the moment trying to entertain that pair to the downside. It's just moving down to the central pivot. That central pivot could hold once we get down to it. So sometimes pairs are easy to trade, other pairs not so much. Depends where all the support and resistance is lying. There's a bit of the support here, and there's obviously historical monthly resistance levels up here. So the pair's just working out, can it break above resistance and sustain itself? But if the trend's going to hold, if we move down to this area here, that should hold and potentially offer you an opportunity to trade up. So you can monitor that level. Aussie dollar. Now, it's a bit flat. You can, I don't have to tell you it looks flat. It looks flat there on the 50-minute chart, but let's just go to the weekly chart first of all. Whilst we're negative for the week at the moment, following that data release, we are having a week up. We are potentially forming a higher bottom here. Now, this could be a false higher bottom that gets broken back to the downside because the monthly chart is definitely down. Slide, I can see you talking about gold. Yeah, that gold's had a bit of a breakdown today, pushing towards that major support level down there. But the Aussie here, it is having a week up. It is potentially forming a higher bottom. Probably need another week to come in. If next week comes in and we can move up another week, that's going to start to confirm, okay, we can hold here, even in the face of that news the other day. So a lot of these pairs I'm just sitting on my hands, but we are forming on the day chart here. We have a lower top, but we had a day up today. We had a positive day yesterday. After a very negative day, we could not follow through, take out this low and take out the weekly support area down here. We had a positive day. and we've had a day up today. Now, it's not doing much. It's just deciding, can it move back above this level here at 67.61. All right, so if we could move above 67.61, if we could close above there today, that would start to give me some encouragement in my mind to say, okay, weekly higher bottom, day chart higher bottom, we're getting above this resistance level that we've been holding below for 2 days. Now, 2 days we closed below 67.61, but close back above that is going to start to put the buyers back in control. All right, so the 4-hour chart, draw a fib across this whole price action movement here at the moment. It's just sitting around that 79% level. You know, if we could break, if we break above this high here, that would, probably start to confirm we're going to move back up. All right, at the moment, still making its mind up. All right, so break above, what's that price level? Price getting above 67.70 is going to start to form an uptrend there on the 4-hour chart. We'll be back above this resistance level, 67.61. That was to start to look a bit more that we want to move back up. Often when you get these large drops, and you don't have to go too far to look for a large drop. There's the last large drop. See how price came back up to fill the drop. Didn't take out the high and move further up, but it did fill the drop. So a big drop. I'd anticipate if we're going to fill this drop that we'll at least get back up to this level here, because that's the break point there. All right. Now it doesn't have to fill the drop, but normally it does. So I'm reluctant to be a seller here at the moment because of that drops occurred and price actually needs to fill it. All right, so the euro yen. Now I posted some analysis on this today, today chart. And obviously you can tell that it doesn't like this area of resistance. We've tried to move through this week. We actually failed on Friday, got above it Monday, but then we've been back below it Tuesday, Wednesday, and we're into Thursday. So this looks more of a failure than what I'm seeing on the Aussie Yen at the moment. So what I'm seeing on the 4-hour chart is it's rather imperfect, but maybe this is a left shoulder. Maybe this is a head up here. And the fib nicely marries up with the resistance hit. Excuse me. The fib 62 level nicely marries up with the resistance level and the potential left shoulder here. So I don't know if we can retest up here, but the potential is not a perfect looking head and shoulders, but some form of head and shoulder could form there on a retest of 144.24. So I'm just watching to see if price can get up to that level or not. And then I'm going to monitor to see what price does there. And I may well look to trade down if we can retest. So just watching that at the moment. To the euro dollar. Now, interesting, the euro dollar. Some of us will be thinking that this is going to be going down. Some of us might be thinking it's going to go up. What's the poll? Do we think the euro dollar is going up, or do we think the euro dollar is going down? Anybody want to share an opinion? Obviously, the higher time frame trends aren't changing at the moment. Cameron, you're saying up. The weekly trend is down. We're having two positive, well, 1 week up. Last week was positive. We have been positive for the week, but we're negative at the moment. Aloof, you're saying it's going down. I'm more to the upside just because I don't, we're at a key price point with the parity. I know we're fractioning below it at the moment, but there's a lot of choppiness going on here at the moment. We've had a significant move down for the majority of the year. This weekly MACD kind of looks like it wants to cross up. Structurally at the moment, we're still lower tops and bottoms. So there is the potential that all we're doing at the moment is having 2 weeks corrective move. We've kind of hit the 62% retracement, and you know what, we could just be moving straight down. All right, I'm not in the pair at the moment, but what I'm seeing is this We've got two weekly levels of support. 99.52 is a more recent level. 99.04 is a historic level back in time. And we don't want to spend too much time below there. We're getting support down there at the moment. And the 99.52 level, this weekly level here, last 2 days, I'm just double checking so I don't give any inaccurate information. We can't really get below 99.55. So that 99.52 weekly level of support here can't get touched. All right. So those that have said what they think is going to go, I've got a 2-to-1 majority of saying that the euro dollar is going to go up. I know it's only 3 people, so it's not a large group of people, but we're all looking at the same chart now. What I'm seeing is the potential. We've moved up to a higher top, and we don't want to come down to weekly support, and that could be like a left shoulder head. Is this a right shoulder? No, it's not perfect. You might say, well, more price action here and here would be your left shoulder, but ultimately it's support. Support's here. We're coming down to support. We don't quite want to touch it. So if we're not quite touching it, that means the buyers are clearly referencing that in the market to give it support because we're not getting down to that level. So I'm seeing as well positive divergence here on the daily from that point down to here. All right, so there's a few things to me that are just looking, it's looking a little bit like it's running out of momentum to the downside. Of course, though, we could still be moving down. So I'm just looking at, if we have a day up today, if we can trade above yesterday's positive candle, that's going to start to form a higher bottom. All right. If I had 100 traders with me looking at this chart today and we traded above yesterday's high and saying that's going to be a higher bottom, I think all of us would then agree we've got a higher top, higher bottom. All right, so if that occurs, then favors an upward move in the short term. So I do a 4-hour chart. It's a little bit range bound, as you can see. But as we were getting into into London today, we tried to come down, but it got held. And the last 4-hour candle, you can see the last 4 hours of trading as we're getting into London. So that's from 3 to 7 o'clock there, pushed it up. So to me, sorry, back to the 4-hour chart, I just think if you take this range, this is the day chart range, up to the higher top, we're consolidating between 62.79 level, can't quite get down to that support level. All right, this looks like it's forming a base. Of course, we can break below, but to me, this looks like it's forming a base to go higher. So, we break above yesterday's high, that's going to start to confirm a move up. We could well then be at least coming up to challenge 10090 daily resistance, 10118 monthly resistance. And this is a nice impulsive move on the day chart. Correction, we could be well coming back up to, as I've said before, 10340 monthly resistance. Okay. So you can work out whether you want to get in on that or not. All right, but if we, start to move back over the next few trading days, this might not go up very strongly. It might just gradually grind up. But if we start to see support coming in at parity on a pullback, at the moment we're getting support at the weekly support level. If parity starts to become support over the next week, we could potentially be seeing this moving up. We could actually end up by the end of the day. Where are we at now? We're almost at parity. We could be at 10050 by the end of the day. All right. We're definitely getting support down here at the moment. All right. Pound yen. Don't really like this pair at the moment. It's still range bound. It's moved up to that weekly level and it can't hold up there. This very tight consolidation down here, before we broke, we could well be coming back to test this level. Longer term trend is up. So, it coming back to the 62.79% area, pulling back to this daily level of support. that would be a perfect region to look for support for then a move back up to re-challenge that weekly level that we're failing at. We're obviously failing up here at 166.33. So I'll be waiting to see this zone to hold, trade back up. Now, of course, you can trade both ends of the market if you want to, but I think structurally this is in an uptrend. But it may well pull back to the base of this period of consolidation to hold on support, then to move back up. All right, so you can monitor that. Pound dollar, it's come back while I've been talking. It's been putting down to the 1500 level. That move up yesterday, let's just go to the day chart. We're probably having a 79% retracement of yesterday's range. So this looks very similar to what I was just discussing on the euro dollar. We are weekly trend is down. All right, and we haven't had a deep pullback yet within that weekly downtrend. We haven't moved back up to say the 62% level. So, but what we have done is hit major monthly support down here at 114.09. All right. But what I'm seeing on the daily chart is that we're moved up to a higher top. Are we putting in a higher bottom? If we trade above yesterday's high, that's going to confirm a higher bottom. Cameron, you're saying, so would you look for trades off the 15-minute if it goes above parity? On the euro dollar, well, I'd like to see parity become support. So I'll probably have to wait till tomorrow. So I'd like to see price nicely move above parity. Like I was saying, if we get up to like 100.50, and then it has a pullback. So we get a nice break above, close above on the day chart. Can we then pull back to parity and see support coming there? It getting above like 10 pips, 20 pips to me, and then looking for a pullback to parity isn't enough. I'd like to see a higher time frame approach to saying, okay, we've moved above parity now. Can we pull back to it to come support? All right, but yeah, off the 15-minute chart, but let it have a nice move above parity, and then can we pull back? All right, to this pound dollar. Very similar to the euro dollar, we've moved up to a higher top here. We're pulling back, and it's like a 79% retracement. Taught you the 79% retracement trade. All right. Didn't quite get there. It stopped within a pip or two. And this might want to come down and actually hit the 79% level. It hasn't done that yet. But what I'm thinking is happening here is we've actually pulled back almost to 79% of the day chart range. All right, first of all. And we're getting ready to move up in line with that day chart trend. And what I think is happening here is we've had some buying pressure come up yesterday, put in this top, we're pulling back here, and this is a pullback to put in a higher bottom on the 4-hour to move up. All right, so if I just get rid of that fib so I don't have too many fibs on my chart, I'm just going to drop to my 15-minute chart. This was the move up yesterday. In fact, I'll draw it on the 4-hour so I get the proper low point. All right, that's the move up yesterday. And then what I'm seeing is that the figure and the 79% level overlap here. Now, obviously, the buyers were watching that area because the last two candles were moving up. So this could be the low of the day. 79% retracement of yesterday's candle for then today moving up. Now, to break above yesterday's high to confirm a higher bottom starting to form. And then, of course, we need to start to look to move above the figure 1609 daily resistance. Okay, is that what we're seeing now? Is that the low of the day? All right, now we do have some news coming out, so there's always every chance that when the news comes out we could get a further stab to the downside. So back to the 4-hour chart here, that daily chart range, we haven't touched the 79% level, so there's still the opportunity to trade there before that holds, you know, to keep that day chart uptrend in line like so. However, we may have already put the bottom in there, but there is every chance that when the news comes out later on in the evening that we get a stab down. But of course, when we got this major drop, we couldn't get to the 79% level. So clearly buyers were watching down there, even in the face of that poor news. All right. So I'm sure there's going to be buyers down there waiting for a stab down there if the market can give that. But we might be putting in a higher bottom here now on the 4-hour chart to want to move up. All right. You can make your decision about where you think that's going. As I'm talking, it keeps moving up. All right. All right, New Zealand yen. It's like all these yen pairs at the moment, well, especially the Aussie yen and this New Zealand yen. This is moved above it, all these resistance levels. There's this monthly level here, all these weekly tops that we moved above, but obviously we couldn't live above there. So at the moment, it's difficult to trade because, you know, we failed at these levels. Trend is still up, higher bottom, higher top, but I don't want to buy into those resistance levels. I like to be buying and have some nice clear space to trade before I'm going to hit resistance. So it's not a pair I'm trading at the moment because just of the nature of all that resistance. All right. So I'm just going to leave that pair as it is at the moment. It is challenging the last weekly top here now, 86.21. We may well see a failure here long term. You know, if we could change the daily chart trend to down, we'd have to break below this low. Then, you know, I'd be looking for this resistance area up here to become resistance or hold as resistance to put in a lower top. But that's going to be next week to look at that. You know, if I'm going to start to look for a short, I need to see that day chart to be down, and it's not down. I just don't want to buy into all that resistance because clearly it doesn't like it. All right. So sometimes I just have to look at a pair and go, okay, I can see what the trend is, but I don't like the environment to trade in. All right. New Zealand dollar. All right. Let me just tidy some of these lines off for the moment. Weekly chart. Now we had a positive week last week. We were clearly liking 60.47 to be support, and we've had a week up this week, but now we're back below that level. We are depending on if the long-term historical approach for this pair is that was a major leg up. Is this corrective to have a major leg that way? Then we're in a kind of a fib support area between 62 and 79, but time will tell whether that was just a corrective leg or the first impulsive leg of a long-term historical change of direction. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. At the moment, we are trading at quite a significant number on the New Zealand dollar. So the New Zealand dollar on the weekly chart is down at the moment. So it's a bit more negative than the Aussie because the Aussie can't take out this weekly low here. To the daily, what we're seeing is the price point of importance is obviously the 60 number. It keeps a little bit, it's been a little bit below it, but we're wanting to hold above 60. So in the short term, the buyers just have a little bit of control down here at the 60 level. They're just holding it at 60. I'm just watching to see, if we get a bit of positivity on the other pairs to the US dollar, do we move back above 60.47? So I'm just on the sidelines with this pair at the moment. I know the trends are down. I'll be watching 60.47 at the moment. Do we come up and that remains as resistance to move further down? Or do we move above 60.47? Until we had the news of Tuesday, we were wanting to be above 60.47, and it was starting to look like we're putting a bit of a base in here to move much higher. So over the next week, 60.47 is going to be the 60 and 60.47. Currently 60 is holding. 60.47, does that remain as resistance, or do we start to want to move back above? The same scenario with all these pairs to the US dollar that have moved down. This drop Generally, the drop gets filled. See the drop there? We come back up to fill it. All right, see that candle pattern here? That's the exact same candle pattern there. You know, we could well be coming back up to this point here. All right. I mean, if the other pairs start to fill the drop, this is going to start to fill the drop too. On the 4-hour chart here, this is potentially putting a little bit of a higher bottom in here to the line of that bottom, which is 59.6, 59.96. All right. So for me at the moment, what's 60.47? Does it hold as resistance or do we start to move above? If we start to move above, I think we're clearly coming back up to this point here, which is around about 61.20. All right. Cameron, you're saying it seems to be rejecting last week's low. Well, that that'll be last week's low here, 59.96. Yeah, so it doesn't want to be below last week's low. We might get some more obvious US dollar positive news, and then this will probably trade below 60. But if the other pairs want to move up, you know, like this is highly correlated to the Aussie dollar. If the Aussie dollar is going to put a higher bottom in and move up, let's just go back to the Aussie dollar. If that's going to put a higher bottom in and move back up, say, to this drop, the New Zealand dollar will, in all probability, do the exact same thing. So, all right, dollar Canadian. Now, I did a post today on this pair. I'm going to actually go to my other charts. We got potentially up here a triple top. We came up. The level is, I think it's 132.07. That high there is 132.08. We obviously, the sellers are clearly watching that level because we couldn't move above it yesterday. So are we creating a double top, triple top? And of course, this top here to this area here for me is still a double top as well on a bigger, on a weekly thing. You know, is this a weekly double top? All right. At the moment, we have rejected up there yesterday. You know, the thing that's going to start to confirm this double top on the smaller area here, the double triple top area here on the smaller price action, is if we start to break below yesterday's low. And we haven't done that yet, but drawing a fib in, just sitting above the 79. But breaking the low of yesterday is going to start to confirm some form of reversal. Then we obviously have to negotiate moving below weekly support, monthly support here, and breaking this interim low here. And if we can break that interim low, then the height of the pattern comes down just below weekly support down here at 127.27. Now, if this starts to come to fruition, Annie, so he's telling me he's selling the dollar CAD at 131.78, so a break of yesterday's low, I'm guessing. If we start to see this form, it then puts more into perspective that the fact is this bigger double top could run out in the longer term. So if I go to my weekly chart, get rid of the other fib, then the turning price point for the larger double top comes down at 122.32. Now, it's going to take weeks to get down there, obviously. And of course, we'd have to see a healthy sell-off on the dollar index and on the dollar, wouldn't we, for that to occur. But anything's possible. Don't forget the pound dollar is at major support. All right, historical support down at the pound dollar. Dollar yen's at, you know, historical levels of resistance. So some of these instruments pairs are at historical levels versus the US dollar. This isn't such a historical level. It's just a price point that's been forming over the last few months. But, you know, if we start to form the day chart double top, then traders may start to look at this to be a larger double top. All right. So the first thing is obviously to Let's see if price action can establish the smaller pattern. Does that run out to become a larger pattern? In this double top here, this is going to be quite healthy. You know, if you get short around about, what are you saying, Annie? 131.78, which is probably the break of 131.78. All right, so you're selling at 131.78, so you're looking for price to pop up, or have you already shorted? One of the two. But trading the break of yesterday's low, if we do break the midpoint low here, getting down to weekly support down here, that is 410 pips. All right, for a risk of no more than 100 pips. So that's a 1 to 4 risk to reward. So Annie, you're saying you're shorting, you're talking about railroad strike in the US, which is going to cost $2 billion a day. All right, so you think all that's going to carry into this moving down. All right, I'm just looking at the price in itself. All right, as well, you know, if you're looking at the bigger picture, even if we don't have a double top that runs out to fruition at the moment on this bigger structure of the fib, we have a 79% level here that we haven't taken out the high. So if we start to move back below this bigger picture 79% level, we could at least be moving down, you know, to test support to come down to the 127 extension. All right, so there's definitely a few things going on there on the dollar CAD that could, you know, lead to a move to the downside. You know, if this moves to the downside, the Aussie dollar is going to move to the upside because they're kind of correlated. So, and if this moves to the downside, the S&P, you know, the Aussie dollar is highly correlated with the S&P 500. As we were saying before, the S&P 500 on my other charts might be forming a higher bottom here, which, as I've said, the Aussie dollar might be forming a higher bottom. So that's Nathan. Let me just close that down. All right. So, you know, if this forms a higher bottom on the S&P 500, we're going to see Aussie dollar forming a higher bottom. We're going to probably see the dollar Canadian creating this triple top on the daily structure here. And are we creating a larger pattern? All right. So this might be a time where a very good shorting opportunity happens on the dollar Canadian. Of course, price can move above the high. That's where you've got to stop in place. All right. But this does offer potentially a very good risk to reward. Just trading the double top here. Waiting for the break of the low of yesterday. Stop above the high. There's at least a risk reward of 1 to 4 there. And if you can structure it on a lower time frame, obviously you can improve it. Cameron is saying, seems to be rejecting last week's low too. That was on the New Zealand dollar you were talking before. All right, let's get into, for those of you who like gold, that it has been moving down today. So let's just cover that one. All right. Now it hasn't come down. Let me just get rid of that fib at the moment. Hasn't come down to test the major level of support yet. Now, of course, this is the, just double checking the day chart because my toolbar's in the way. This is the day chart of gold. And we're coming down to major level of support. So of course, stops are being tripped underneath these lows here at the moment. These bottoms that have been forming that are higher to this one over here. And here's the major level on the monthly chart, which you can see on the weekly chart. Now, yes, we could quite clearly break through that level or at least test it. All right, so we know we might not test it. We may just be simply tripping a few stops down here. So the thing to watch is, these are those two lows here. So let me just color that in. Is, you know, through the trading day here on the 4-hour chart. All right, this is the area where those stops are getting tripped. So what's happening here is that retail traders for sure have been in bought positions and they've got the stops underneath these lows and they're going, okay, I'm wrong. So they're selling. Some retail traders are obviously selling, going, well, these lows are getting broken, so we're going to sell to go short. All right. Now, the question will be, are the larger institutional traders simply taking these orders to buy? So those retail traders are selling. The other side of the trade is to buy. Okay. Are the institutions taking those buys for the move up? All right. Now, if we simply close back above this level on the 4-hour chart, we get a nice candle up closing above the 4-hour chart, that might be simply enough to go, okay, that's a false break of that area. Or, you might want to wait for, on the day chart, does today's candle by the end of the day close above those lows and give you a reversal candle? Because before those levels were broken today, what I was looking at on the 4-hour chart was this kind of rising line of support. All right, this sort of structure. So is this a false break of these day chart lows? And, if we move back above, certainly if we move back above, if we close back above this level today, $16.96.99. The buyers are in control, and that's a false move. All right. So if you follow gold and you trade it, are we dealing with a false break down there for a move back up? All right. So Cameron's saying he seems to be rejecting last week's low. Well, we're trading underneath last week's low at the moment, so I don't know whether we're quite rejecting it yet, but if we're back above last week's low by the end of the day, then we could be rejecting it for sure. So just have to wait and see what the day brings. We've got obviously more news coming out from the US retail sales. So we'll see how the market reacts to that. All right, so some of these pairs at the moment, well, a lot of the pairs are absorbing Tuesday's news. Whilst that was US dollar positive, then yes, like tomorrow could give a clear picture for gold. Is that a false move to the downside? All right. Of course, we might trade down all day long and be testing down at major support. Now, we could not get a reversal today. We could come down and hit major support, and then do we get a reversal down there? Of course, we could break major support. Maybe the market wants to move through major support. We'll have to wait and see. But at the moment, I think we should be looking at, do we get a reversal at major support? Because that's often what will happen. All right. So, you just stay on your hands until you see something that you go, okay, that's telling me something. At the moment, all we can see is that price at the moment looks like it wants to move down to test support. So we'll just wait to see what support does. All right. All right, any more questions? Let's just go back to my other charts. Just click through, see what's been going on since I've been talking. All right, Aussie Yen's moving down a bit more. Aussie dollar still kind of sticking on the 79. This is potentially a 79% retracement pattern. You just have to decide, for yourself, do you want to trade that pattern? You could be trading to the long side right now, stop above the low. Are we trading back up to the upside, or wait for a bit more clarity? All right, so euro dollar's tested parity. Doesn't want to move through at the moment. That's probably okay because it's waiting for the news. Traders aren't wanting to commit their dollars, their trades, to push this above parity at the moment. But what has happened today is the movement down into London was clearly supported ahead of that 99.52 week support level. Okay. All right, pound dollar. So that little bit of a bounce down here at the moment. Again, not much is going on. It's waiting for the news tonight to come out. It's a little bit problematic if you're not in a long-term position where you're in profits and you're holding for a long-term move with the trend, wherever you think that trend is. With these news items coming out at the moment, it's a little bit stop and start, isn't it? And sometimes if the news drastically affects price action, you can't get in because it just moves so quickly. So sometimes that's the way trading is. Slav, you're saying there was a bunch of bad yellow news from Europe earlier this evening. Well, if there was, the market certainly absorbed it because price has been moving up. Well, you could say, you're saying could put negative pressure on the euro, but the euro has been moving up. So I don't think the euro really cares about those yellow events, because you can clearly see through London here, we've been trading back up. So all right. And let's just go to the news. And sometimes, I don't know if people think I trade every day, but sometimes I don't trade for a week. Depends what the news is doing. Depends what I'm seeing. Depends if I've got, complete clarity about what's going on. If we get into next week, where are we? We're the 15th today. Getting into next week. So we've got, we got the interest rate decision from the US. So at the moment, it's saying here they're going to throw in 75 base points. Then we're going to have the monetary policy statements. We've got the BOJ press conference. They might talk about the, having to step into the market if the dollar yen goes too much higher than it's doing. So there's lots of, and we've got the pound UK official interest rate decision. It's not saying here yet what they're anticipating, but I think there's going to be a rise of another 50 base points potentially. So we've got more news to handle with next week as well. So we do have as well next week Canada's CPI data, because they've been raising their interest rates by 75 base points too. So more of a heavy week again next week for the news. So potentially the market might be a little bit sideways all the way to next Thursday. Does it really find a direction before we get the interest rate statement from the US next week? So here we go. I haven't actually opened a trade this week. Or I'm just waiting for a bit more clarity after that big drop on Tuesday. I'm still feeling like the euro dollar, the pound dollar wants to move up. But it'd be nice to just see a little bit more strength. All right. Be nice for the euro dollar and the pound dollar by the end of the week to finish on a positive week. That would maybe give us a bit more of a stronger indication where things are going. And Slav, you're saying it looks like the market can't decide which way it wants to go. Well, yep, that big drop, all I know is from historical price action, like this is the 50-minute chart of the pound here, before I finish up for the night. Just moving that into view here on the left. This big drop, these big drops that we often get, we often flatten out and then come back up to the point of the drop. All right, so is that what we're going to be doing? And the number of pairs are showing that drop. So that means our number of pairs going to be moving back up to fill the drop. All right. More often than not, I can't give you like 100% say that works 100%, but more often than not, that's what happens. So that's why I'm leaning to these pairs moving back up, because of what normally happens. All right. So just to give you a heads up what's coming up next week. Got the time on the webinar front. Next week, next Tuesday, more market analysis. Hopefully the markets have stirred up a little bit and we've got much more of a clear picture of, is that US dollar, yes, having a further corrective move down for a few weeks. Next Wednesday, I'm going to go through the 4-hour trade entry. This is something new that I'm showing. And I think the PowerPoint's got like 100 pages to it. There's lots of chart examples. If you don't have a lot of time, to look at like 50-minute charts, and you'd much prefer maybe to look at a 4-hour chart and just look at the chart at the close of a 4-hour candle. So you look at the chart of your favorite pairs every 4 hours on the close, then that's what this trading approach is all going to be about. So if that interests you, that's on Wednesday. And then next Thursday, again, we've got live market analysis. So just go and register interest if you want to join me for those webinars. For those that have been with me this week, thanks very much. Your participation is always appreciated. All questions coming in, thanks very much. So have a great weekend. And hopefully we see a little bit more of a clear price action. Is the US dollar going to continue with its weakness from last week's negativity and finish down by the end of the week? We'll have to wait and see. All right, everybody, stay safe wherever you are. Stay safe trading, and look forward to seeing you next time.